So you've just booted up Oblivion Remastered, and you're staring at that iconic character creation screen, trying to decide what kind of hero you're going to be. Warrior? Thief? Mage? Maybe a little bit of everything? Well, before you go swinging swords or flinging fireballs, there's one big decision you've got to make. Your birth sign. Yep. In true Elder Scrolls fashion, the stars themselves are here to bless or curse your journey, and choosing the right one can seriously change how you play the game. Now, Oblivion Remastered may have gotten a shiny new coat of paint, but those core systems? Still vintage 2006 charm. That means Birthsigns still do exactly what they did back in the day, offering powerful buffs, unique abilities, and sometimes a little risk for a lot of reward. With 13 options on the table, we're diving into which Birthsigns are actually worth your time, and which ones are, well, better left in the stars. Let's break them down and help you pick the perfect sign for your playstyle. I'm quickly moving on to the video. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. Alright, let us talk about the Tower Birth Sign in Oblivion Remastered. You might look at it and think, hey, free lockpicking and a little damage reflection? That sounds pretty decent. And yeah, on paper, it kind of does. Tower Key lets you unlock an average level lock once per day. It is like having a skeleton key that only works once every 24 hours. If you are not planning on becoming a sneaky lockpicking expert, it might sound tempting, especially early in the game when your security skill is basically useless. But here is the catch. The effect is so limited that it starts feeling more like a party trick than an actual tool. Now, the second ability, Tower Warden, reflects 5% of incoming damage for 2 minutes once per day. Sounds cool, right? Like a little magical shield that slaps enemies back for trying to hurt you. But again, we are talking 5%. That is barely noticeable unless you are taking a ton of hits, and even then, it is such a short window that you probably will not get much out of it. Compare that to other birth signs that offer passive buffs or game-changing effects, and the tower really starts to look like the odd one out. Here is something even more telling. You can find the Tower Doomstone in the world, and it gives you basically the same lockpicking power. So, why lock yourself into this birth sign when you can just stumble across its best trick later in the game anyway? That alone should make you stop and think before picking it. The tower does not scale with you, and it does not adapt to your playstyle over time. It is a one-and-done kind of sign, and that is just not very exciting when you are building a character for the long haul. So, who is the tower really for? Well, if you are playing a heavy armor-wearing, warhammer-swinging brute who could not pick a lock to save his life and just wants a shortcut once a day, maybe it has some use. But even then, you are better off practicing security or grabbing a few lockpicks and giving it a try yourself. There is satisfaction in doing it the hard way. And let us be honest, Oblivion's lockpicking minigame is actually kind of fun once you get the hang of it. In the grand scheme of things, the tower just does not hold up compared to the stronger birth signs available. The Shadow Birth Sign is definitely one of the cooler picks in Oblivion Remastered, especially if you are planning a stealthy playthrough or thinking about joining the Dark Brotherhood. Its unique power, Moonshadow, lets you turn completely invisible for 60 seconds once per day. That might not sound like much at first, but trust me, when you are in the middle of a botched assassination or trying to sneak past a room full of angry guards, that 1 minute of invisibility can feel like a lifesaver. Now, the way Moonshadow works is pretty straightforward. You activate it, and boom, you are gone. Just keep in mind, the moment you interact with something like a door, chest, or even draw your weapon, the effect wears off instantly. So it is best used for making clean getaways, or repositioning yourself in a tight spot. It is not something you want to waste during casual sneaking, since you only get it once a day. But here is the thing. While the shadow is fun and thematic, especially for role players, it kind of gets overshadowed, pun intended, by the Jones Stone. This is a standing stone you can find just north of Skingrad, and once you activate it, it gives you invisibility for a whopping 120 seconds. That is double the duration, and unlike the Shadow, you also get permanent buffs to your sneak, acrobatics, and athletics skills. It just offers more long-term value, especially if stealth is your main playstyle. So, is the Shadow worth it? If you are going for flavor for roleplay or just love the idea of having a panic button once per day, it is a solid choice. But if we are talking pure power and utility, especially in the late game, the Jones Stone easily outclasses it. Still, There is something undeniably cool about turning invisible, vanishing into the night, and leaving your enemies clueless. That alone might be reason enough to give the shadow a shot. Alright, let us talk about the Serpent, probably one of the strangest birth signs you can pick in Oblivion Remastered. On paper, it sounds kind of interesting. You get a unique ability called the Serpent spell. With it, you can touch an enemy and poison them for 60 points over 20 seconds. At the same time, you dispel any magic effects on yourself and cure any poison. Sounds like a pretty decent panic button, right? Well, not exactly. The catch here is that using the Serpent spell also drains 100 points of fatigue from you. That is a huge hit, especially if you are in the middle of a fight. Losing that much fatigue means your melee attacks are going to be weaker, your chance to knock someone down or resist getting staggered drops, and even your movement can feel sluggish. And since it is a touch-based spell, you have to be right up in someone's face to use it. Not exactly ideal if you are trying to stay alive. Now, if you are playing an Argonian, you can skip this birth sign entirely. They already have poison immunity and strong disease resistance built in, so the healing part of the spell is kind of useless for them. That makes the Serpent better suited for other races, maybe a Breton or a Dunmer, someone who might need a quick cleanse in a tough situation. But even then, the trade-off does not really feel worth it most of the time. In the end, the Serpent is one of those birth signs that sounds cool in theory, but really struggles to hold up in actual gameplay. The poison damage is underwhelming, the touch range limits its use, and the fatigue penalty is just too harsh. Unless you are role-playing a cursed wanderer or trying to make a challenge build, you are probably better off picking something a bit more useful. There are plenty of birth signs that give you solid bonuses without such a heavy cost. Alright, let's talk about the Steed birth sign in Oblivion Remastered. Now, this one is kind of a weird pick. On paper, a flat plus 20 bonus to speed sounds amazing, especially in the early game when you are just trudging around Cyrodiil in that clunky iron armor. If you are someone who hates moving slow and wants to dodge arrows like you are in a dance-off, the Steed can definitely give you that edge from the get-go. It is particularly great for those early dungeon crawls, or if you are planning to wear heavy armor and still want to feel like you are flying across the landscape. That boost helps cancel out the movement penalty from heavy gear, so you do not feel like a walking statue. Plus, if you are the type who loves exploring every hidden ruin and sneaking through caves before you are even supposed to be there, being fast just feels right. But here is the catch. Speed is actually one of the easiest attributes to level naturally. You can train it up just by running and jumping, so it does not take long before you are zipping around anyway. That means the bonus from the Steed kind of loses its value once you hit the mid-game. There is no bonus to health, no combat perks, no magical edge, just speed. It is a one-trick pony. Pun very much intended. So unless you really want that fast-paced early game or you are role-playing a courier sprinting across the Empire, the Steed is probably not the most efficient choice. There are other birth signs out there that offer powerful, permanent effects that can change the way you play from start to finish. The Steed is fun, sure, but if you are chasing power or utility, you might want to look elsewhere. The Ritual is one of those birth signs in Oblivion Remastered that sounds amazing on paper, but once you dig into it, it is more of a niche pick. It gives you two unique abilities, Mara's Gift and Blessed Word. On the surface, that sounds like a solid deal, healing and crowd control. But let us break down what you are really getting here. Mara's Gift is a once-per-day ability that restores 200 points of health. That is a full health bar for most early game characters, which can definitely save your life in a bad situation. Imagine you are swarmed by bandits or accidentally stumble into a trap-filled ruin. You hit that button and you are back in action. The downside? You can only use it once a day. So if you are someone who forgets to use daily abilities or burns through multiple fights quickly, this one might let you down. Then there is Blessed Word, which is basically your get-out-of-jail-free card against undead enemies. It causes them to flee for 30 seconds at the cost of 40 magicka. Not bad, especially if you are deep in Ayleid ruins or haunted crypts and just want to avoid a messy fight. However, this ability only works on undead, and if you are not exploring those types of areas often, it ends up sitting unused in your spell list. So who should actually take the Ritual? Honestly, it is best suited for tanky characters who want a panic button, or for players who love diving into dark, creepy dungeons filled with skeletons and ghosts. But if you are focused on pure combat, or want something that helps more consistently, you are probably better off choosing a birth sign with more reliable passive benefits or more frequent use powers. The Lover Birthsign in Oblivion Remastered is one of those underrated picks that deserves a closer look. On paper, it might seem simple, paralyze an enemy once per day. But in practice, Lover's Kiss can completely flip a fight in your favor. 10 seconds of paralysis is no joke, especially when you are facing a strong enemy or caught off guard. You pop this power, and suddenly the toughest warrior in the room is standing there like a statue while you regroup, heal, or go full offense. Now the catch, because there is always a catch, is the fatigue penalty. Using Lover's Kiss hits you with 120 points of fatigue damage. That is a lot. In fact, if your fatigue is already low, this can drop you flat on your face. Literally. You can end up fainting mid-battle, giving your enemy a front row seat to your poor decision-making. So the power is kind of a gamble. Do you use it and risk collapsing, or save it for the perfect moment? It adds a layer of strategy that is both fun and a little dangerous. But here is where things get interesting. If you are playing as an Imperial, you can actually work around this downside pretty well. Their racial ability, Star of the West, lets them drain fatigue from others. That means you can burn all your fatigue with Lover's Kiss, then instantly refill it by zapping someone with Star of the West. It is like having a built-in combo move, and honestly, that synergy is what makes the Lover especially powerful for Imperial characters. All in all, the Lover is not for every player. If you are someone who prefers passive bonuses or constant buffs, this might feel too situational. But if you love high-risk, high-reward gameplay and enjoy pulling off clutch plays, this Birthsign can be a game-changer. Just make sure you are not using Lover's Kiss right before running into a crowd, unless you are ready for a nap on the cold dungeon floor. The Apprentice Birthsign in Oblivion Remastered is one of those picks that makes you feel like a glass cannon with a backpack full of fireworks. You get a juicy bonus of 100 extra points to your magicka, which is absolutely amazing for any aspiring spellcaster. Whether you are flinging fireballs or summoning undead minions, this extra pool of magicka lets you cast more spells early on without running dry every few seconds. It is a tempting choice, especially for players who want to dive deep into the magical side of the game right from the start. But of course, there is a catch, and it is a big one. The Apprentice also gives you a permanent 100% weakness to magic. That means any magical attack, whether it is a fireball from a bandit or a trap in a dungeon, will do double damage to you. Yikes. It can be brutal if you are not careful. But hey, if you like a challenge, this makes every encounter more thrilling. You are basically walking around with a big target on your back that says, "Please cast lightning on me." Now, if you are thinking, well, that sounds like a terrible deal, hold on a second. This is where things get interesting. If you pair the Apprentice with a Breton character, you are actually countering some of that weakness. Bretons have a natural resistance to magic, which softens the blow quite a bit. Plus, Bretons make excellent conjurers. If you focus on summoning spells, you can stay out of harm's way while your summoned creatures do the dirty work for you. It turns your vulnerability into a tactical playstyle. Stay in the back, let the minions fight, and keep your distance. And if you are planning to join the Mages Guild, the Apprentice can really shine. All that extra magicka means you can keep up with your training and climb the ranks more easily. Yes, you will need to stay alert in magical battles, but the payoff is worth it if you are clever about how you fight. Think of it like playing on hard mode for magic users. High risk, high reward. So if you are feeling bold and want your mage to live on the edge, the Apprentice might just be the perfect pick for your next playthrough. Alright, let's talk about one of the most interesting Birthsigns you can pick in Oblivion Remastered, the Lord. This one is kind of a mixed bag, and that is exactly what makes it so intriguing. On one hand, you get a super solid healing ability that can really save your skin in a tight fight. On the other hand, you get slapped with a weakness that can make certain parts of the game a fiery nightmare, literally. So what do you get with the Lord? The main ability is called Blood of the North, and it heals you for a total of 90 health points over 15 seconds. It costs 50 magicka to cast, but here is the cool part. It is a power, not a spell you have to find or learn. That means it is available to you right from the start, and it can make the early game so much smoother, especially if you are not playing a full mage build. Think of it like carrying around a portable healing potion that does not take up any space in your inventory. But of course, nothing comes for free in Tamriel. The Lord Birthsign also hits you with a curse called Trollkin. This gives you a permanent 25% weakness to fire. That may not sound like a big deal at first, But once you start dealing with Oblivion Gates and Daedra that love to toss fireballs at your face, you will definitely start to feel the burn. Literally. You are going to want to stock up on fire resistance gear or enchant some pieces yourself if you plan to make the Lord your go-to. Overall, I would say the Lord is best suited for close combat characters who need a reliable way to heal without always running back to town or chugging potions. It is not as flashy as some other Birthsigns, but if you play smart and cover your fire weakness, the benefits can really shine. Just do not walk into a Daedric ruin thinking you are invincible. That 25% weakness will humble you real quick. Now let us talk about one of the most straightforward and reliable Birthsigns in Oblivion Remastered, the Mage. If you are planning to play a character that leans heavily into spellcasting, this one might catch your eye. It gives you a flat bonus of 50 extra points of magicka right from the start. No strings attached, no downsides, just pure magical fuel for your fireballs, healing spells, and all your other arcane goodies. What makes the Mage especially appealing is its simplicity. Unlike the Apprentice, which gives you a bigger magicka pool but makes you take more damage from spells, or the Atronok, which cuts off magicka regeneration entirely, the Mage keeps things clean. You get a solid bump to your magicka without having to worry about any kind of magical catch. It is kind of like that one friend who just shows up with snacks and does not ask for anything in return. This Birthsign is honestly great for new players. When you are just diving into Oblivion and figuring out how the magic system works, the Mage gives you some extra breathing room. You can experiment with different schools of magic without constantly running out of energy. Want to summon a skeleton and blast a fireball back to back? The Mage says, go for it! Now sure, it is not the most exciting choice out there. It does not make your spells stronger or give you crazy regeneration mechanics, but it is dependable, and sometimes that is exactly what you need. For mages who want to get into the action quickly without worrying about drawbacks, the Mage is a very solid pick.
When it comes to choosing a Birthsign in Oblivion Remastered, the Thief is definitely one to consider, especially if you're planning on playing as a stealthy character. This Birthsign offers some fantastic bonuses that can give you a serious edge early in the game. First off, you get a boost to 3 essential attributes: Agility, Luck, and Speed. Each of these attributes gets a +10, which means you're starting out with a huge advantage, particularly in the areas that matter most for thieves and assassins. Let's break it down. The Thief's bonus to Agility makes your character more nimble, helping you avoid damage and land critical hits with ease. Speed is going to help you move around the map faster, so whether you're sneaking through a dungeon or getting in and out of tight spots, you'll be doing it at top speed. And then there's Luck. Luck is one of those stats that tends to be a bit of a hassle to level up, but with the Thief Birthsign, you get a nice head start with a solid +10. It's especially useful for landing those critical hits or finding better loot. If you're planning on joining the Thieves Guild or pursuing a life of crime in Oblivion, the Thief Birthsign is pretty much tailor-made for that. The permanent bonuses to these 3 attributes, Agility, Luck, and Speed, make it much easier to level up your stealth skills. You'll find that sneaking around, stealing items, and picking locks become a lot less challenging when you've got this kind of boost. Plus, those extra points help your character get through early quests more smoothly, as you'll have a solid foundation right out of the gate. In terms of overall value, the Thief provides the largest point boost compared to other Birthsigns. With 30 points spread across Agility, Luck, and Speed, you're not just getting a minor advantage. This is a big head start, making your character much stronger in areas where they need it most, especially for a stealth build. If you want to play a character who can get the drop on enemies, outmaneuver opponents, and make the most of luck, the Thief is an excellent choice. If you're diving into Oblivion Remastered and looking for a Birthsign that gives you a solid boost in both health and magicka, the Lady Birthsign might just be your best choice. It gives you a neat little bonus of 10 extra points each in willpower and endurance. Now, while it might not have the same flashy bonus as some other Birthsigns, trust me, the Lady is still a fantastic pick. These 2 stats, willpower and endurance, are crucial for your survival, especially if you're playing as a close combat magic user. Think of it as a combo that keeps you going longer in the heat of battle. Let's break it down. First, the endurance bonus is a game changer. Every time you level up in Oblivion, your total health points are determined by your endurance level. So with the Lady's bonus, you'll be starting off with more health than most characters, which is always a great way to keep you alive in those tougher encounters. And we all know how unforgiving Oblivion can get, right? So having that extra health gives you a nice cushion when things start getting chaotic. Now let's talk about willpower. For spellcasters, this is especially important. Willpower affects how quickly your magicka regenerates, and with the Lady's bonus, you'll see a noticeable difference. Sure, you may not get the massive magicka regeneration boosts that other birthsigns might offer, but the steady replenishment is incredibly valuable when you're in a tight spot. This means you'll be able to cast more spells more often, without running dry on magicka so quickly. In the end, the Lady Birthsign is a solid choice if you want to focus on both combat and magic. It might not provide the biggest numbers in any single stat, but the balance it offers between health and magicka regeneration is hard to beat, especially when you're looking for survival and sustained performance in Oblivion Remastered. So, if you're planning on being a close combat mage, this birthsign is definitely worth considering. The Warrior is one of the most solid birthsigns you can pick in Oblivion Remastered. If you're the type of player who loves getting up close and personal in battle, this birthsign is definitely for you. It's all about raw power and endurance, giving you a 10-point boost in both strength and endurance. This means you're going to hit harder and tank more damage, which is perfect for melee combat builds. You won't just be dealing out punishment, but you'll also be able to take a few hits yourself, making you a formidable presence in any fight. The cool thing about the Warrior is that it's not just for the swords and shields crowd. Even if you're not focusing purely on close combat, the added strength is a huge benefit. First of all, more strength means you're carrying more loot, something that can't be underestimated in a game like Oblivion, where you'll be hauling around all sorts of weapons, armor, and potions. Plus, that extra strength will let you deal more damage with all your weapons, not just melee ones. It's a pretty universal boost that helps no matter how you play. Now, let's talk about the endurance boost. The Warrior gives you a 10-point increase to this stat as well, which is awesome for anyone looking to improve their health faster. As you level up, this extra boost allows you to stack more health points, making you tougher in prolonged fights or against those high-level Daedra you'll encounter in the Oblivion realms. Trust me, when you're facing off against some of the toughest enemies in the game, having that extra health can be a lifesaver. If you're diving into Oblivion Remastered and planning on taking on the challenges head first, the Warrior is a birthsign you can't ignore. Whether you're building a strong tank, a damage-dealing powerhouse, or just want to be a bit more versatile in your combat approach, the Warrior has got you covered. It's a great choice for players who want to become the ultimate battle-hardened hero of Tamriel. If you're looking for a birthsign that really plays into a magic-focused playstyle in Oblivion Remastered, then the Atronok is definitely one you should consider. This birthsign is a bit of a double-edged sword. It gives you a massive boost to your magicka pool, but also comes with some notable challenges. Let's dive into what makes the Atronok both awesome and tricky so you can decide if it's the right fit for your character. First off, the Atronok gives you a huge permanent boost to your magicka, adding 150 points right from the start. That's a lot more than the Apprentice or the Mage birthsigns provide, and if you love casting spells and dishing out magical destruction, you'll feel right at home with that extra magicka. It's perfect for magic-centric builds where you need as much magicka as possible to fuel all your destructive and supportive spells. The more magicka, the more powerful your spells can be, and you get to keep on casting even longer than usual. But here's where it gets interesting. The Atronok comes with a major catch. You no longer regenerate magicka naturally. Normally in Oblivion, your magicka would slowly refill over time, but not with the Atronok. This means you'll need to rely on restore magicka potions or seek out other sources like way shrines to recharge. It can be a bit of a hassle, especially if you forget to stock up on potions or forget to plan your trips to the shrine, but as long as you're prepared, it's totally manageable. You'll have to think ahead a bit more, but with that massive magicka pool, it's not all that bad. On the flip side, the Atronok also gives you the incredibly useful ability of spell absorption. This means that when you're hit by a magical attack, there's a chance you'll absorb that magic and convert it into your own magicka instead of taking damage. This can be a game changer in certain fights, especially against enemies who love to throw spells at you. So, while you're lacking natural magicka regeneration, this mechanic gives you a chance to recharge on the fly. In the end, the Atronok is perfect for a magical defense-heavy character who isn't afraid to prep a little more before heading into battle, and with that extra magicka and spell absorption, you'll be a force to be reckoned with. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.